My name's Daniel. I'm 32, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the quiet, responsible one in my family. Not the favorite, not the rebel, just the one who kept his head down, paid the bills, and didn't make trouble. If you asked my parents, they'd probably describe me as serious. If you asked my older brother, Ryan, he'd smirk and call me boring. Ryan has always been the golden child. Charismatic, reckless, constantly messing up, but somehow never facing the consequences. If he skipped class, it was, boys will be boys. If I brought home anything less than an A, I'd get a lecture about discipline. He wrecked 2 cars before he was 21 and still got another one handed to him. I saved up for my first car mowing lawns and bussing tables, but that barely earned a pat on the back. I told myself I didn't care. I buried the resentment under work, under routine. I built a steady career, lived on my own, paid for everything myself. Meanwhile, Ryan bounced from one failed job to another, drifting back home whenever things fell apart. And still, my parents acted like he was brilliant, charming, special, the future of the family. 4 years, I kept showing up. Holidays, birthdays, family dinners. I thought maybe if I just stayed reliable long enough, they'd notice me too. That illusion shattered at Ryan's engagement dinner. A few weeks before, Mom called me in her sweetest voice, the one she always used when she wanted something. "Daniel, sweetheart, we're throwing a dinner for Ryan and Claire at this beautiful rooftop restaurant. It's going to be so special. Could you help with the reservation? Just to hold it. We'll pay you back, of course." Of course. They never did. I didn't even hesitate. I booked the place, put the deposit on my card, and told myself it was fine. Maybe this time, I'd feel like I was part of the celebration. The night of the dinner, I showed up early in my best navy suit. I'd bought a bottle of champagne and even printed a card with their initials. I wanted to do this right. When I walked into the rooftop, the space looked like something out of a magazine. String lights, flowers, a jazz band in the corner. I spotted my family at a long table, glasses already clinking, laughter spilling into the night air. For a moment, I felt almost hopeful. Then Ryan saw me. He grinned, raised his glass, and said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "Danny, glad you made it. Sorry though, this table's for family only. But hey, there's a spot for you right over there." He pointed to a folding chair shoved against the wall, next to the trash bin. At first, I thought it was a joke. I even laughed nervously. But when I looked at Mom, she gave me that tight little smile that meant don't make a scene. Dad shrugged. Claire didn't even acknowledge me. And some of the guests chuckled, like it was the funniest thing they'd ever heard. Heat rushed to my face. My chest felt hollow. But I didn't argue. I walked over, set my gift on the floor beside the chair, and sat down. Alone. The whole night, I sat there like a shadow while they laughed, toasted, posed for pictures. Nobody asked if I wanted to order. Nobody spoke to me. At one point, Ryan gave a speech about how grateful he was to be surrounded by the people who matter most. Everyone clapped. I sat beside the trash, invisible. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, the waiter approached with the bill. "Excuse me, sir," he said, lowering his voice. "Should I run the final balance on the card you used for the deposit?" I blinked. The final balance? "Yes, sir. The total comes to $3,284. The entire table turned to look at me. Ryan leaned back, smirking. "Oh, don't worry. Danny's got it covered. He always does." I felt the room tilt. My hands were trembling, but my voice came out calm. Not my table. The smirk slipped off Ryan's face. Mom's jaw dropped. Dad frowned like I'd committed some unforgivable sin. I stood, put on my coat, and looked Ryan straight in the eye. You said this table was for family only, so you can pay for it. I'll be over here, where I belong. And then I walked out into the night air, leaving them in silence. The air outside the restaurant was sharp and cold, but it felt cleaner than anything I'd breathed inside. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment, my chest heaving, my ears still burning from the stunned silence I'd left behind. For once in my life, I hadn't swallowed it. I hadn't taken the punch with a polite smile. I'd walked away. I half expected someone to follow me out. Mom, maybe Dad. But nobody came. No hurried footsteps, no apologies whispered in the dark. Just the faint echo of music drifting from the rooftop above. I took a cab home, tossed my jacket onto a chair, and sat in the dark until the clock blinked past midnight. The next morning, my phone lit up like a bonfire. First, a message from Mom. Daniel, what you did last night was humiliating. You made a scene and embarrassed us in front of Claire's parents. Then Dad, as steady and predictable as always. You should have just paid and kept the peace. It was tradition. That word again. Tradition. Funny how tradition always seemed to mean me cleaning up Ryan's messes while everyone else clapped. Then Ryan, of course. You're pathetic. Can't believe you tried to ruin my engagement dinner because you're jealous. Grow up, Danny. I stared at the screen so long my coffee went cold. Jealous? Jealous of him? The guy who'd coasted his whole life, who'd never paid his own rent, who'd shoved me next to a trash bin like I was the family dog. I didn't reply. I couldn't trust myself to. But silence only made things worse. By noon, my aunt had called demanding to know why I'd stormed out. A cousin left a voicemail telling me I owed Ryan an apology. Even Claire herself texted me for the first time in months. If you can't be happy for us, at least don't make it about you. That one hit hard. Because I hadn't made it about me. I hadn't said a word all night. I just sat where they told me to sit, swallowed it like always, until they tried to stick me with the bill. For a few days, I tried to brush it off. I buried myself in work, ignored the buzzing phone, and told myself it was over. But it wasn't. Every family gathering that followed had an edge to it. Thanksgiving was stiff, with my mom pointedly serving Ryan seconds while forgetting to pass me the rolls. At Christmas, Dad gave Ryan a new watch and me a generic gift card with my name spelled wrong on the envelope. And then came the ultimate test, when Emily and I announced our engagement. We'd been dating for 4 years, steady and real, and I knew she was the person I wanted beside me for the rest of my life. She said yes without hesitation, and for the first time in months, I felt joy again. Joy that was mine, not overshadowed by Ryan. We started planning right away. Venues, menus, guest lists. Emily wanted something elegant but intimate, not a giant circus of distant relatives. I agreed. Our wedding was about us, not putting on a show. But the moment my family heard, they swooped in. Mom clasped her hands like she'd been waiting for this her whole life. Oh, Daniel, how wonderful! And of course Ryan will be your best man. He'll look so handsome standing by your side. I nearly dropped my fork. What? Your brother, Dad said, as if it were obvious. Best man. It's tradition. That word again. Always that word. Emily's hand slid into mine under the table. She didn't say anything, but her eyes said enough. Don't let them railroad you. I set my fork down and took a breath. Actually, Ryan won't be at the wedding. The table went dead silent. Mom's face fell like someone had blown out a candle. Dad froze mid-bite. Ryan, of course, smirked. "What's the joke this time?" he asked. "No joke," I said. My voice was calm, firmer than I felt. "You're not invited." The silence shattered into chaos. Mom gasped, clutching at her necklace. "Daniel, how could you say something so cruel? He's your brother." "Exactly," Ryan said, leaning back with a smug grin. "He's jealous I got engaged first." Pathetic. I locked eyes with him. "This isn't about jealousy. It's about respect. And you've never shown me any." The room erupted, Mom begging, Dad lecturing, Ryan laughing under his breath. But Emily held my hand steady. For the first time, I realized something. This was my wedding, my life. And Ryan wasn't going to be part of it. Not this time. Not ever. The news spread through my family like wildfire. Within 24 hours of me saying Ryan wasn't invited, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. First came the guilt trips. Mom called me in her trembling, performative voice. "Daniel, listen to yourself. Do you realize how this will look? What will Claire's parents think if your own brother isn't at your wedding? They'll think we're a broken family." I kept my tone steady. "Maybe they'll just think we don't reward disrespect." Her gasp was so dramatic I had to pull the phone away from my ear. "You always overreact. It was just a joke, sitting you at that chair. Ryan didn't mean it that way." I almost laughed. A joke. Right. A joke that cost me 3 decades of being treated like an afterthought. Then Dad tried the rational approach. "Son, you need to be practical. Ryan is family. People will talk. You don't want to start your marriage on the wrong foot, do you?" "Dad," I said flatly, "what's the right foot? Letting Ryan toast me at my own wedding while he calls me pathetic under his breath." He sighed, the same weary sigh I'd heard my whole life whenever he didn't want to argue but also didn't want to admit I was right. "You'll regret this one day." But the worst was Ryan himself. He texted me, "Well, can't wait to see how small your wedding looks without me. Good luck explaining that to the family. Claire's already laughing about it." Emily read it over my shoulder and shook her head. "He's not laughing, he's panicking. He can't stand the idea of you finally standing up to him." And she was right. Because the messages kept coming, not just from him, but from every branch of the family tree. An aunt I hadn't spoken to in years called just to lecture me about forgiveness. A cousin I barely remembered left me a voicemail. "Dude, you're being petty. Invite him, it's not that deep." But to me, it was that deep. It always had been. Still, the pressure wore on me. At night, I'd sit at the kitchen table scrolling through the avalanche of messages, my jaw tight, my hands aching from clenching the phone too hard. Emily would rub my shoulders and whisper, "Danny, it's our wedding. Not theirs. Not his. Ours." And for a moment, I'd breathe easier. Until the next day when Mom called again. This time her voice was sharp, not sweet. "If you don't invite Ryan," she said, "don't expect us to come either." The words hit harder than I expected. My own parents. Choosing him. Again. The silence on my end must have been long, because she rushed to fill it. "You're forcing our hand. We can't play favorites. If Ryan's excluded, it'll tear the family apart." I finally found my voice. "You tore it apart years ago when you made him the favorite." "Daniel, don't be dramatic," she snapped, her sweetness gone now. "You always have to make everything bigger than it is." I hung up. My hands were shaking, but my chest felt strangely light. For once, I hadn't let her rewrite the story. That night, Emily found me staring out the window, my phone buzzing on the table beside me. "They're not going to stop," I murmured. She pressed her forehead to mine. "Then we don't let them in. This is our day. If it's just you, me, and a couple of friends, we'll still be married. And we'll still be free." Her words sank into me like an anchor. For the first time, I started to believe that maybe standing my ground didn't mean losing everything. Maybe it meant finally gaining something. Peace. But my family wasn't done yet. And I had no idea just how far they were willing to go. After that call with Mom, things only escalated. At first it was words, guilt trips, lectures, late-night texts. But when I didn't budge, my family shifted tactics. Words turned into actions. The sabotage began quietly. One afternoon, our caterer called to confirm some menu changes. "So, we're swapping the salmon entree for chicken marsala, right?" Emily and I looked at each other, confused. We hadn't requested any changes. After a few minutes of back and forth, the truth slipped out. My mother had phoned the caterer herself, saying she was helping finalize details. The next week, the venue emailed me about a sudden increase in the guest count. "Just checking if you're aware of the added names," they wrote. Attached was the updated list. And there it was, Ryan's name, bold and clear, right in the middle. Emily was livid. "They're trying to sneak him in like it's some kind of game," she shouted, pacing the kitchen. It didn't stop there. My best man, Marcus, called me one night sounding uncomfortable. Hey, man, your mom reached out. Asked me if I'd consider stepping aside so Ryan could be best man instead. Said it would heal the family." My grip on the phone tightened. "Please tell me you told her no." "Of course I did," he said quickly. "But dude, this is insane. They're obsessed." Insane didn't even begin to cover it. Every week, it was something new. Emily's florist got a call from a relative, asking if she could add blue flowers, Ryan's favorite color, as a family gesture. Our priest called to ask about rescheduling, because my dad had apparently tried to change the date to avoid a conflict with another wedding Ryan was attending. And then came the rehearsal dinner. Emily and I arrived at the restaurant early, trying to shake off the stress and focus on us. But the moment we walked in, my stomach dropped. There he was. Ryan. Sitting at the bar, drink in hand, grinning like a cat who'd just eaten the canary. "Surprise," he drawled, raising his glass. "Guess I got an invite after all." Emily froze beside me. "Daniel," she whispered, her hand gripping mine so tightly I thought she might crush it. I looked past Ryan and saw them, my parents, standing a few feet away, watching proudly like they'd just unveiled a magic trick. Mom's smile was all triumph. Dad gave me a small, satisfied nod. My pulse pounded in my ears. They had done it. They had crossed the line from manipulation into open sabotage. "Don't make a scene," Mom said sweetly, stepping forward. "It's family, Daniel. You'll thank us later." I stared at Ryan, his smug grin, the way he leaned back like he owned the room. And for the first time, I felt something shift inside me. A breaking point. If I didn't stand firm now, my own wedding, my vows, my joy, my peace, wouldn't belong to me anymore. It would belong to them. To Ryan. And I wasn't about to let that happen. For a long moment, I just stood there staring at Ryan. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. Emily's hand trembled in mine, but her eyes were steady, waiting for me to decide. Ryan raised his glass again, smirk wide and unbothered. What's the matter, little brother? Not happy to see me? The laughter in his voice was gasoline. My chest burned. I took a step forward. You weren't invited. That wiped the smirk off his face for half a second. Then he leaned back in his chair, pretending to look bored. Relax. Mom and Dad invited me. Their names are on the family too, you know. I turned to them. Did you do this? Mom folded her arms, her chin lifting with that look she always gave me when she thought I was being too emotional. Daniel, don't be ridiculous. This is your brother. He has every right to be here. And if you cared about family at all, you'd understand. Family. My voice cracked louder than I meant it to. Heads turned. The restaurant went quieter. You mean the same family who sat me next to a trash can at Ryan's engagement? The family who expected me to pay for $3,000 worth of food and drinks I wasn't even allowed to share. Dad muttered, "That's not fair." No. I cut him off, my voice shaking but strong. What's not fair is decades of this. Him being the favorite, me being the backup plan. Him getting praise for failing, me getting silence for succeeding. And now, on the one day of my life that's supposed to be about me and Emily, you're still trying to hand it to him. The words echoed in the restaurant. Nobody moved. Even Ryan's grin had stiffened, his drink hovering just below his lips. Emily squeezed my hand and whispered, "Keep going." I looked at Ryan again. "You're not coming to my wedding. Not tomorrow, not ever. And if Mom and Dad want to keep forcing you into my life, then maybe they shouldn't come either." Gasps. Actual gasps from the tables nearby. My mother's face went pale, then red, then pale again. "Daniel, don't you dare speak to us that way. Then don't dare sabotage my wedding," I shot back. Ryan slammed his glass down. "You're pathetic. Always whining about respect when you've never earned any." "Earned it?" I barked a laugh. "I paid for your engagement dinner, Ryan. I carried this family while you sat on the couch. If anyone hasn't earned respect, it's you." The silence that followed was brutal. My father opened his mouth, then closed it. My mother blinked rapidly, fighting for a comeback she didn't have. And Ryan actually looked rattled, like for the first time in his life, someone had shoved back. Emily tugged at my sleeve gently. "We don't have to stay," she whispered. I nodded. Without another word, we walked out of that rehearsal dinner. Heads turned, whispers followed us, but I didn't care. For once, I hadn't shrunk into the corner. I hadn't sat quietly by the trash. For once, I'd chosen myself. But as the door closed behind us, a cold thought slid into my mind. If this was the rehearsal, what kind of war was tomorrow's wedding going to be? The morning of our wedding should have been calm, full of excitement, nerves, and laughter. Instead, my phone was already vibrating off the nightstand before the sun was up. At first, I ignored it. Emily and I had promised each other, no drama today, just us. But by the time I got out of the shower, there were over 30 missed calls. Half from Mom, the rest from unknown numbers that I had no doubt were relatives. Emily looked at me in the mirror while fixing her hair. Just don't look. But I did. Against my better judgment, I unlocked the phone. The first text that lit up the screen was from Mom. "We're outside the venue. We won't leave until you let Ryan in. Don't ruin this family forever, Daniel." My stomach dropped. "They're here," I muttered. Emily froze mid-stroke with her makeup brush. "You've got to be kidding me." I scrolled further. Photos. My parents had taken pictures of themselves actually standing at the front doors of the venue, Ryan in the middle grinning like he was about to walk a red carpet. Underneath, another message. This is your last chance. Be reasonable. Let him in or we all walk. Emily swore under her breath. They're blackmailing you. On your own wedding day. I wanted to punch something. Instead, I called Marcus, my best man. Hey, I need you at the doors. My family's trying to crash the wedding. He didn't hesitate. Say no more. I'll handle it. Within 10 minutes, he texted me back. They're throwing a fit, but I've got security on it. They won't get past the lobby. Relief flooded me, but it was quickly replaced by something darker, rage. My parents hadn't just disrespected me. They hadn't just ignored my boundaries. They had tried to hijack the single most important day of my life. And the whispers had already started. Guests arriving early had seen the commotion, the raised voices, Ryan pacing like a caged lion while Mom cried dramatically into a tissue. Emily slipped her hand into mine. Her voice was steady, but her eyes glistened. We can still do this. This day is ours, no matter what circus they try to start outside. I nodded, but my chest was tight. Because a part of me knew, they weren't done. Not yet. And I was right. Half an hour before the ceremony, just as the guests were being seated, Marcus came rushing into the groom's suite. They're trying to bribe the staff, he whispered. Your dad just offered the coordinator $500 to accidentally put Ryan on the seating chart. Said it was an oversight. I laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. Unbelievable. Marcus put a hand on my shoulder. What do you want to do, man? Because I'll tell you this, if he gets in here, he's not just sitting down quietly. He's planning something. You can see it in his face. I looked at my reflection in the mirror. Suit crisp, tie straight, but my eyes stormy. This was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, and instead it felt like I was going into battle. I took a deep breath. He's not coming in. If they don't like it, they can leave. Today isn't about them. Emily appeared in the doorway then, radiant in her dress, her smile soft but fierce. It's about us. And as I looked at her, I knew. No matter what chaos my family tried to unleash, nothing was going to take this day away from us. But I had underestimated just how far Ryan was willing to go. The ceremony was about to begin. Guests shuffled into their seats, the music started to hum, and for a brief moment, I let myself believe everything was finally under control. Then I saw him. Ryan. Standing at the very back of the hall, leaning against the doorframe with that smug, lazy grin I'd known all my life. He wasn't supposed to be inside. Security had strict instructions. Marcus had sworn he'd keep him out. Yet somehow, there he was, dressed in a suit, holding a drink like he owned the place. My heart dropped into my stomach. Emily hadn't noticed yet. She was still with her bridesmaids, moments from walking down the aisle. I motioned Marcus over, anger boiling in my veins. How the hell did he get in? Marcus looked like he wanted to punch something. He slipped in with a group of Claire's distant relatives. Security thought he was with them. I swear, man, I'll drag him out right now. I looked again. Ryan was waving at people, whispering little comments, already drawing attention. A couple of guests were laughing, like he was some kind of entertainer. My hands shook. This was it. The nightmare I'd seen coming. I started down the aisle, ignoring the confused stares from guests. When I reached the back, Ryan raised his glass in a mock toast. Little bro. You didn't think you could do this without me, did you? His voice carried over the quiet murmur of the crowd. Get out, I hissed. Come on, he drawled. loud enough for the front rows to turn. It's a wedding, not a funeral. Don't be so dramatic. Something in me snapped. Years of being belittled, shoved aside, forced into the shadows, it all coiled tight and burst. I grabbed the glass from his hand and slammed it down on the nearest table, the sharp crack echoing through the room. You don't belong here, Ryan. Not today. Not ever. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My mother shot up from her seat, face pale, hurrying down the aisle. Daniel! Stop this nonsense. He has a right. No. I cut her off, my voice shaking but thunderous. He has no right. Not after everything. Not after humiliating me, mocking me, trying to ruin every step of this. He is not family today. He is not welcome here. Ryan's grin faltered. For once, he didn't have a comeback ready. He glanced at the guests, waiting for someone to laugh along, to back him up. But the silence stretched. Eyes turned away. Whispers buzzed. Emily appeared at the end of the aisle then, in her gown, her eyes wide as she took in the scene. For a heartbeat, I thought she'd be horrified. Instead, she lifted her chin, walked straight toward us, and took my hand. Her voice was clear, steady. If he stays, I don't walk down this aisle. And I think everyone here knows that's not how this day ends. That did it. The coordinator rushed forward, Marcus at her side. Together they ushered Ryan toward the doors. He sputtered protests, but no one listened. The doors slammed shut behind him, the sound final and satisfying. I turned back to Emily. My throat was tight, my chest heaving. But when she smiled at me, everything else faded, the noise, the whispers, the chaos. Because she was right. This day wasn't his. It was ours. And nothing, not even Ryan, was going to take it from us. The moment Ryan was escorted out, the tension inside the hall snapped like a rope pulled too tight. A hush lingered, heavy and awkward, before the music started again. Emily gave my hand one last squeeze and nodded toward the altar. "Let's finish this," she whispered. And we did. The ceremony itself felt almost surreal. Standing there, saying our vows, I could still hear the faint echo of Ryan's protests outside the doors. But when Emily looked at me, eyes steady, voice strong, the world shrank down to just the two of us. For once, it wasn't about my brother. It wasn't about my parents. It was about us. When the officiant finally declared us husband and wife, the cheer that went up felt like a release, like the guests themselves were relieved we'd pulled through. For a brief, shining moment, I thought maybe, just maybe, the worst was over. I was wrong. The reception started smoothly. Dinner served, music playing, laughter building. Emily and I had just sat down at the head table when Marcus leaned in with a warning. "Your parents look pissed," he muttered, nodding toward the far end of the room. I followed his gaze. Sure enough, Mom sat rigid in her chair, lips pressed thin, eyes darting like she was rehearsing a speech in her head. Dad kept sipping his drink, his jaw tight. I knew what was coming before it even happened. Halfway through dinner, Mom stood up, clinking her glass for attention. "I'd like to say a few words," she announced, her voice trembling with forced grace. Emily's hand tensed in mine. Mom raised her glass. "Marriage is about family. It's about forgiveness. And it breaks my heart that not everyone was allowed to be here today." "Sit down, Mom," I snapped before I could stop myself. Gasps rippled through the room. My mother froze, eyes wide, glass halfway to her lips. I stood. "No. Not today. This is our wedding, not a stage for more guilt trips. If you can't celebrate without making it about Ryan, then don't speak at all." The silence was suffocating. For a long, awful second, I thought she'd double down. But Dad pulled her arm gently, muttering something under his breath. Her face burned red as she sat back down, slamming the glass onto the table. The rest of the meal passed under a cloud of awkwardness, but Emily and I powered through. We danced, we laughed, we cut the cake. Our friends cheered louder to fill the space our families refused to. Still, I could feel the resentment radiating from my parents like heat. Every time I glanced their way, they sat stiff and silent, refusing to clap, refusing to smile. They weren't celebrating me. They were punishing me. And when the night wound down, when Emily and I were saying our goodbyes, my father finally cornered me near the exit. His voice was low, sharp. "You humiliated us today. You'll regret this, Daniel. Mark my words. You'll regret cutting your brother out." I met his glare head-on, my voice calm but cold. "The only thing I regret is not cutting him out sooner." His jaw tightened. He didn't reply. He just turned and walked out into the night, Mom trailing behind him, her face twisted with fury. Emily slipped her arm around me, her head resting against my shoulder. "They'll never see it," she whispered. "No matter what you do. So stop trying to make them." Her words hit deep. Because I realized she was right. For the first time in my life, I wasn't chasing their approval. And maybe I never would again. But I also knew this wasn't over. My family wasn't the type to lick their wounds quietly. They were going to strike back. The honeymoon should have been a blur of beaches, sunsets, and champagne. And for the first few days, it was. Emily and I laughed, explored, shut our phones off, and pretended the world outside didn't exist. But reality has a way of finding cracks. By the third day, when I finally checked my messages, there were over 100 unread notifications. At first, I thought it was the usual spam. Then I saw the subject lines. "Selfish groom ruins his own wedding." "Ungrateful son disrespects family tradition." "Bride marries into a broken home." My chest tightened as I scrolled. Screenshots. Facebook posts. Family group chats leaked into wider circles. It was everywhere. My own parents and Ryan had taken our private war public. Mom had written a long post about how her heart was broken because her ungrateful son had turned his back on family. Dad had chimed in about disrespecting tradition. Ryan, of course, had added his own commentary, mocking me, painting himself as the victim, and hinting that Emily was controlling me. The comments were brutal. Neighbors, extended relatives, even people I barely remembered from childhood piled on. "Blood is thicker than water. One day he'll regret this. Poor Ryan, what a shame." Emily sat beside me, reading over my shoulder. Her face went pale, then hardened. "They're trying to destroy you," she said flatly. It wasn't just online. When we got home, invitations dried up overnight. "A cousin's baby shower? Oh, sorry, it's just family." "An uncle's barbecue? Maybe next time." Even co-workers who were friends with my parents started giving me side glances. It was exile. A quiet, deliberate exile. For weeks, I tried to fight it, posting my side, explaining the years of favoritism, the humiliation, the sabotage. But every time I spoke up, it was drowned out by louder voices calling me bitter, dramatic, ungrateful. One night, Marcus came over with a six-pack. He listened as I vented, as I scrolled through the avalanche of posts, until finally he put a hand on my shoulder. "Man, stop feeding them. They want you to explain yourself because it keeps the drama alive. But you don't owe them your story. You already told them the truth, they just don't want to hear it. Emily nodded from across the room. Marcus is right. Let them scream into the void. We'll build something quieter, better, without them. Her words were warm, but the ache in my chest stayed. Because as much as I wanted to cut them out completely, part of me still grieved. These were my parents. My brother. The people who should have lifted me up, not torn me down. But every time I wavered, I remembered standing by that trash can at Ryan's engagement dinner. I remembered Mom telling me not to make a scene. Dad telling me to keep the peace. Ryan smirking while everyone laughed. And I knew, going back wasn't an option. Not anymore. Still, the silence that followed was almost worse than the noise. My phone, once buzzing every hour, grew quiet. No invitations. No updates. No calls. It was as if I had been erased. And yet, in that emptiness, something new started to grow. In the months after the wedding, life settled into something strangely peaceful. No calls from my parents, no sarcastic texts from Ryan, no last-minute favors that drained my time and money. For the first time in years, the silence was mine. Emily and I threw ourselves into our new life together. Weekend trips, lazy Sundays, planning for the future. Our apartment felt warmer, lighter, like we'd finally shaken off a shadow that had clung to me my entire life. And yet, the ache lingered. Some nights I'd catch myself staring at old photos, Christmas mornings, birthday parties, wondering if things could have been different. Wondering if I had been too harsh, if there was some version of reality where my parents looked at me with the same pride they reserved for Ryan. But then I'd remember. I'd remember the folding chair by the trash can. I'd remember the $3,000 bill shoved in my lap. I'd remember my parents trying to sneak Ryan into my wedding, even on the very morning of the ceremony. And the ache would harden into something else. Not anger, not grief, clarity. Because the truth was simple, love without respect isn't love at all. And for 32 years, I had begged for scraps of respect from people who never intended to give it. One evening, a letter arrived in the mail. No return address, but the handwriting was unmistakable, Mom's. Inside, a single page. Daniel, we hope you're happy. But you've broken this family. Until you apologize to Ryan and make things right, don't expect us to be part of your life. I sat there staring at the words, my chest heavy. Emily read it over my shoulder, then tore it neatly in half. Her voice was calm but firm. You didn't break anything. You just stopped letting them break you. I realized then that I wasn't alone. I'd built something stronger than the brittle bond I'd spent years chasing. I had Emily. I had Marcus. I had a future that didn't revolve around being the shadow to Ryan's spotlight. That night, as Emily and I sat on the couch eating takeout and laughing over a dumb movie, I felt it fully for the first time. Peace. Not the fragile kind that comes from keeping the peace at your own expense, but the solid kind that grows when you finally choose yourself. So, did I mess up by not inviting my brother to my wedding? No. I saved it. Because my wedding wasn't the day I lost a family. It was the day I finally built one.